So here you'll see a complete article describing everything that you need to know about the business model canvas, which you can read, and there's plenty of links to supporting material. Also worth saying that we've deliberately used well-known frameworks in the strategy world, like the business model canvas, because if you want and need, you'll find there's no shortage. People have written books and treatises about the business model canvas. There's no shortage of information to help you understand how to use it more effectively. At the same time, we recognize that people, you're here to do a job. You're here because, in this case, you want to get your business started or you want to get more growth into your business. You don't necessarily want to be reading lots of strategy books, right? We've read the strategy books and built the tools for you so that you don't have to. And one of the things
can I, again, if I can just nudge in there as a user, but also coming from, if you like, the business model background, some people will be familiar with business models like SWOT or PESTLE, but won't necessarily perceive those as part of a strategic planning process, but perhaps a risk analysis or a corporate assessment. Having been through the courses where you've got all these models fired at you, hands-off, PESTLE, SWOT, 5 forces, etc. Very often, and what was my experience was I hadn't really a clue how they all tied together and how they could all be used together to formulate a strategy or a business plan. I mean, to an extent, if we take the word strategy off the table briefly, how do I build my business plan with these models? And this actually provides, as I'm sure you'll show, Chris, the sort of logical way they're all strung together to start at the beginning, have a middle, and get an answer at the end.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. As I said, strategy used to be something that sort of large businesses with big budgets did. Smaller businesses that tried to mimic or emulate what the larger businesses were doing by sort of downloading a SWOT template or a PESTLE template from the internet. And then, of course, what you end up with is a lot of disconnected templates that you filled out, and you say, well, I still don't know, how does this add up to anything of any consequence? And working with businesses, I've seen that's a real big challenge. So this will join all of those familiar tools up together so that it leads you through a process and you end up with a whole that's more than the sum of the parts. It's not just a bunch of templates you filled out. There's a logic that draws you through from your initial thinking all the way through to the eventual achievement of results.
And the sum of the parts makes sense.
As
a whole, which is the disjointed nature of this if it's not pulled together. This, again, disclosure, I was looking, when we started the consultancy, I was looking for an app that did this, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was finding lots of people who were prepared to sell me bits of Word or PowerPoints for $1,200 a year that were basically flat bits of paper. I could have basically done it with a pencil of paper. This is the only one that I have found so far that actually puts it all together in a 3 and indeed 4-dimensional, fourth dimension being time box that kind of talks to it all talks to each other, doesn't it, Chris? That's the element here.
And that's what we've set out to do, an end-to-end process that will take you from start to finish, every step of the way in a logical process that will give you an answer consistently every single time. That's been the aim of it, yeah. So because we're using those models, there is loads of help both on the site and in other places. But one of the things that we learned very quickly is that as I said, you're not here to do lots of reading, right? You're here to solve your business problems. So one of the things we did is we trained an AI bot that you can ask it a question. So anywhere I'm in the system and I come to the business model canvas and I say, well, I don't know what this is. So I can ask it, what is a business model canvas used for? And it'll give me an answer, right? So I can go there and read it, and then I can ask a follow-up question. Decide my customer segments. customer segments. So this thing has been trained on everything to do with all of the processes that you're going to go through in StratNavApp to, as I said, from beginning to end to develop and execute that strategy. So you can come to the tool knowing absolutely nothing about strategy and the terminology used in strategy and the models and frameworks, and it will provide you with all the support that you need. So in this case, it's decided, because we told it we're working on a startup, it's in the AI help here, it said a good place to start is, and it literally is a good place to start. There's nothing about the tool that says you have to start here. You could choose to go and start somewhere else. But a good place to start, and this is fairly widely recognized, is with a business model canvas. And the objective of the business model canvas is to lay out how you think this business that you're busy creating is going to work. And the business model canvas is fairly broad in that it covers all the key things that you would need to know about your business. So it starts off on the right here with your customer segments. Who is this business going to serve? And it works all the way through how you're going to reach them, what kind of relationships are you going to have them, what's the value proposition you're offering them, what are the key activities and resources you need in place in order to be able to fulfill that value proposition, what kind of partners will you need to work with in order to deliver those. And of course, it looks at the financial aspect of the business. So the revenue structure, which of course relates to your customer segments, and the cost structure, which of course relates to your key activity and resources. So it's all laid out in a nice, easy to understand, simple manner. And as you mentioned, all we're going to do is drop little post-it notes onto this,
and actually
describing each of those.
A quick a memoir for people who are watching who haven't seen one of these before. Basically, all the customer side is on the right-hand side of the business model canvas, and all of the kind of supplier side is on the left-hand side. And in the middle is how we match what the customer wants with what we as the supplier can provide. And you'll see that the revenue structure sits underneath the customer, because the customer generates revenue, and the supply side is where we have costs, and that's where the cost is. So that's how it's structured, just for anybody who hasn't seen it before. Left-hand side is us, right-hand side is the customer, and the bit in the middle is the bit that brings us together with the offering that we're going to make that's going to be really appealing to the customer.
That's right, Barry. And the business model canvas has proved very appealing, because once you see that logic, it's kind of inescapable, right? It's a very, if you just look at it first, you might not notice it, but once you've seen that logic, it's inescapable and very intuitive as to why it's been laid out the way it is, and why that's going to help you to understand your business. We'll see if I can hover over any of these things, and it'll provide me with additional explanation. That's a general rule of thumb in the system. If you look at something and you don't know what it is, if you hover your mouse over it, it'll probably give you some explanation of what that is. And as we've mentioned, the help is there. So typically, in an offline world, someone might post a big one of these up on the wall and you'd stick post-it notes. We're going to do that digitally. But just for the purposes of demonstrating how the system works as well, as I mentioned before, with the advances in AI, we can actually achieve quite a lot by asking the AI to help us out with this. So the text here is suggesting I start off with my customer segments. I'm saying, well, I'm not really sure how to go about doing that, so I can ask the AI. Now, the first thing the AI is going to do is going to pop up and ask me for a little bit of starting context, because as we know with AI, context is absolutely essential to getting the answers that you want. And remember, thus far, the only thing we've told it is our business is called Bob's Bike Shop. So we're going to give it a little bit more context. And again, you've got all the help you need there telling you what sort of context would be useful. So I'm going to follow the instructions as precisely as I can. So I'm going to say Bob's Bike Shop sells and maintains bikes. I can't type today. Bikes for fitness enthusiasts, families and commuters in the Surrey Hills area. Okay, so I've told it very simply what this business is going to do, who it's going to do it for, and where, and that's going to provide the context that we need for the AI to go away and do a little bit of thinking, and it does.
And while it's doing that, actually, just anybody who's wondering, this is totally unscripted. Chris and I sat down and agreed to go through this. So I don't know what's coming up, to be honest. Chris is kind of doing this as we speak. So you, the viewer, and I are sitting as part of the team who are putting this together. I will act as on your behalf and inviting Chris to add some thoughts from the viewer side. So over to you, Chris, again. But just to confirm, it's totally unscripted. This is great. I'm enjoying this.
Absolutely, Barry. And to be honest, I don't entirely know what I'm expecting as well, because of course the AI has gone and consulted its vast knowledge of all sorts of things and come back with some answers. And as ever with AI, it's come back with some things that I would have entirely expected and some things that were refreshing surprises. So it's come back and suggested, here are my customer segments. Now, it's no surprise it suggested fitness enthusiasts, commuters and families, because I kind of prompted it to suggest that. But it's also suggested, and this will no doubt have been done based on its own knowledge from the context I provided. It's also suggested 2 additional customer segments, which I may want to consider. Now, of course,
just just going back to for people who aren't familiar, customer segments are basically the different kind of potential revenue streams of different sources of income that you might gain from different parts of the market you're selling to. So you've got a bike shop, but who are you going to sell to? And here's a list that AI's come up with of potential users. How about, however, Chris, that I'm sitting here going, but what about the sports enthusiast that it seems to have missed off? So you've got fitness enthusiasts, but I'm particularly keen now. I'm a sports biker, so right. I want the drop handlebar version, and so you're going to put me down. There it is. So at the bottom, this is the first user content from my side. Sports enthusiasts, and that's Grammarly down there, so that will do is be checking your spelling as you go along, which is something you've added to the system, isn't it?
Yes, it would be absolutely essential. As you can see, my typing is particularly poor, so having Grammarly there, just keeping an eye on me, really helps. But adding that is as simple as typing it in and hitting enter, and it will and it's added that for you. Now, it's a truism, Barry, as you're talking about customer segments. It's a truism about strategy that one of the mistakes that people make is they say, well, I want to launch a bike shop. And you say to them, well, who's your target market? And they say, well, anyone who wants to buy a bike, obviously. Now, that may be true. If you're running a bike shop and someone comes in and says, I want to buy a bike, clearly you're going to sell it to them. But in order to think strategically, the more specific that you can be about who it is you think is most likely to buy a bike, the more you can understand their specific needs and preferences, and the more targeted and successful you will be able to make your business. Now, that's not to say that if someone walks into your bike shop and doesn't fit your target customer segment, that you would turn them away. Of course, you wouldn't turn them away. You would still sell them a bike. But in terms of the other activities that you're going to do to attract customers, the more you focus on specific categories of people as customers, the easier it's going to be for you to attract them. So identifying them is absolutely key. And once you've identified them, of course, you then are able to, in the system, click on that record, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of information that you can start to enter. And you'll see the AI has actually generated some additional information over here. But you would want to supplement this.
You clicked on the customer segment from that in the business model canvas.
Yes.
You clicked on the customer segment.
Go back here.
Yeah,
yes, I picked the first one and I said, I'm going to click on this one to get some more detail
Right.
about them.
So you
Yeah.
click on that car. Okay.
And it's opened up all this information, and I can start to add more of my understanding of what this particular customer segment is likely to be thinking about when they think about buying and servicing their bike. And you'll see there's some free text information that I can enter, and the AI has suggested a starting point for that free text. I can continue adding and say, what are these fitness enthusiasts? Fitness enthusiasts. I really shouldn't be typing this live. Don't only care about their bikes, but also about the type of food they need to eat. Now, I'm not a fitness enthusiast as far as cycling goes, but I imagine that's something they worry about. So I would be collecting the information. I'd be talking to people I know who are fitness enthusiasts and trying to understand as much about them as possible and capturing that. And you can do this in free format. And you'll see we've also got this template here for the customer proposition map, where I can map out in more detail what exactly they're likely to want to do. So I can, for example, say the types of jobs they want to be able to do is they want to be able to buy.
Now, whilst Chris is typing that in, sorry, I don't want to cut up, but I'm conscious of how time's running. While Chris is typing that in, again, for anybody who's seeing this for the first time, again, it's the same split. Basically, the value proposition is what we as the supplier can bring to the party, and the customer profile is what the customer is in that particular segment is looking for. And actually, I think there are elements here that the customer has basically got some jobs they want done, things that are routine, things that need to be done, but some gains they want to make, and also some pains that they're suffering, things that are really bothering them, itches they need to scratch that they want to get rid of. Yeah. On the left-hand side of the value propositions, which is where we, the supplier, come in, we've got a number of products and services, and Chris is going to build it out, I guess. And there are some gain creators that we either already have on the shelf, or we have the ability to look at the right-hand side of the customer proposition map and go, okay, what does that customer actually want? And what do we then need to that's going to satisfy what they want to in terms of gains, and what they want to do, what they need, what are the things that we can do to relieve their pain. So what's happening as I'm speaking, and again, this is unscripted, it's happening in real time, is that we've got a choice here. We either got existing products that will satisfy the gains or the pains that the client either wants or the pains that it's suffering, or we can generate something from our suppliers, our people, our inventory, our product base that is more bespoke to the requirements, the needs, the wants, the gains and pains of that specific customer profile. Would that be fair, Chris?
That's absolutely right, Barry. So as you've been talking, I've put in some examples. I would imagine spending a bit more time on this and putting some more examples. But we've described our view of what this particular customer segment wants, working towards what we're going to offer to support that. And it goes without saying that the better and the more accurate and the more detailed that understanding is, the greater our chances of success. Right?
Because you're actually creating something that the customer wants, needs.
You're developing a deep understanding of what the customer wants and needs, and how what you are offering or are going to offer really talks to that. And that will help you with things like product design, product selection, but it'll also, if you spend enough time on this, help you with marketing and promotion, because you'll understand the way this particular market thinks about your world and the kind of words and concerns that are likely to get their attention, so that you're presenting something that they care about in a way that they care about it.
And from a new
that,
business point of view, or an existing business point of view, you're strategizing from the customer's perspective here, which is crucial. I talk in terms of fundamental market problem, FMP, fundamental market problem, the thing that the market needs that only you can resolve, or you could build something, design something to resolve. And that's really where this value proposition is going to be so key. And the customer, the value map, is going to help you create this. And it's actually incredibly powerful. You'll find that once you start going into this, you suddenly find insights popping out of the screen that you hadn't even thought about, or segments that you hadn't even considered. Clarion Call is strategy as a team sport. Get as many of your team, customers, always involved, building this thing out, because they're going to come up with ideas that you hadn't thought about before. It's like 5 people find 5 different ways for use for a paperclip. You're going to get at least 25 different uses for a paperclip, and this is the same principle. And your business and your organization is going to be better for it. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's absolutely right. Very much a team sport, right? You want as many. You want the richness of ideas from many different people and many different perspectives, and of course, it's much easier to do that if you can write down and capture, so that people can look at, review, and comment on something in a simple way. So you don't want to have to write, War and Peace to describe your business, because no one will be bothered to read that. So you want a nice, succinct way of summarizing what you're thinking about your business that people can look at and easily reflect on and add to, and that will help you significantly. The other thing that I would add to that is one of my mantras is trust in the process. So if you follow the process that we've outlined in the tool, step by step, diligently, and apply yourself at each step, the insights and the answers will follow. If you just say, I'm going to lock myself in a dark room with a wet towel over my head and wait for inspiration to strike, it may, and clearly for some people it does, and there's lots of popular media that tells you about how inspiration struck with some people. But actually, much more likely outcome is that you follow the process diligently, apply yourself, the insights will follow. It's if you think about trying to get fit, if you just decide to run a marathon, you will probably collapse and die after 5 kilometers, right? Whereas if you start at the beginning of the process and you build your base fitness and you add the various skills and fitnesses that you need, most people will be able to run a marathon if they follow the process.
One of the points about the capture of this is constantly saving. Everything you put in is saved as it's put in. Speaking about inspiration in front of a computer is quite difficult, actually, particularly if you're working on your own. And you'll find that you're in the shower and suddenly you have this brilliant idea that pops out from nowhere. And the lovely thing is you can wander in and pop it in, because I have StratNavApp on my iPhone. You can pop your idea into the relevant place, and it's sitting there. It's now part of the plan. It's there. It's live. It's a fascinating process. Chris, just from the viewer's perspective, the value proposition suddenly appeared there. Do you want to explain the origin of those?
Yeah. So it's pulled the. So because it's a completely integrated repository, you'll start to see things feed through from one place to the next, and that's a recurring theme throughout the tool. So it's taken some of the things that we put in for the customer value map on the customer segment and it said, well, that should form the basis of the value proposition on the business model canvas. So it's pulled it through. And because the system is repository based, that's always integrated. So those things can't get out of sync. And if you went through all of these custom segments and did what we did, you'd start to see the complete value proposition would emerge. And you could then look at it from the business model canvas perspective and say, that doesn't feel quite right yet, so we'll tweak it, and it'll feed that back into the custom segments as well.
Right.
So the system makes sure that your thinking always stays sort of aligned and holistic. And so what you would normally do then is you would go through and you would flesh out each of these customer segments, and maybe you would delete one. Maybe you say, we're not interested in tourists, so you delete them, you do whatever you would do. The system then remembers that. And what's really interesting, and this is where the AI really comes into its own, each time, because it's now suggesting at the top here that the next thing we do is we look at the channels, and it's saying,
Can
well,
I
you
just
can ask
again
the
interrupt,
AI
Chris?
to help.
Can I just interrupt, Chris? Because it wants to look at the channels, the AI is going to help. But just getting back to that value proposition again, can you just click on the fitness enthusiast to show where that's come from? This is for people who haven't seen it, who haven't yet sort of joined the dots, because it can. So if we go down, so the gain that we think would satisfy the gains that the customer on the right hand side wants is organized rides and community, and then the pains that they're suffering is punctures and breakdowns. So the inspiration there was a bike workshop might be a good idea, correct? So then when we come out of this, this is now captured in the overall business canvas. Is that correct? That's what exactly?
Yes. And what you would find is some of the gain creators and pain relievers for some of your segments would be equally applicable to other segments. So you'll get some overlap. And of course, that's a good thing. The more you have gain creators and pain relievers that work across multiple segments, so there'll be some similarities and some differences, and those make up collectively your value proposition. Now, of course, it goes without saying, I typed in some things very quickly. You'd probably do this slightly more thoughtfully than we do. But those things, you're quite right to point out. These two here are bubbling back up onto the value proposition.
Yeah,
they're the same. They're now.
And from before we depart that, or do you want to run with the AI? I'm in your hands, really.
Why don't I set the AI running? Because as you saw, it takes a few seconds, and then we can talk while we're doing it.
Sure.
But if you remember, the first time we ran the AI for the custom segments, all it knew was that single sentence I typed in about Bob's Bike Shop, right? When I run it now to ask the channels, it's going to know everything we've told it about each of these customer segments and the value proposition when it thinks about the channels. So its context has suddenly expanded from relatively little to, well, still quite little, to be honest, but something already much more meaningful than a blank sheet of paper.
And channels are the routes
so I'll
to
set
market.
that running, and it's going to take that all into account.
Yeah. So for those that aren't used to it, again, the channels are the routes to market, or how we get to the customer. Is that
Yes.
what it's? Yeah.
So it's how are we going to find, so we've said we're going to sell bikes and various other things to these customer segments. How are we going to find them? How are they going to know about us, and how we're going to reach out to them? The channels.
So those are the channels. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it suggested some things, and again, based on the very little we've told it, you'd say that's a fairly good guess. You can go in again. If I click on that, you see it's provided a little bit more information about what it thinks and why it thinks local events and community engagement are a good channel to market. And certainly, the little I know about running a bike shop, I would suggest that absolutely that would be something that you ought to be considering as you set up your bike shop. How are you going to manage those?
Right.
And again, so you would go through these.
That was something that we prepared earlier. Rewind the podcast and watch. There was no continuity break there. It happened before your eyes and mine. I hadn't seen any of that when it popped up and populated the channels there. That was entirely done by AI in real time as you were watching.
And that's right. And I've done this loads of times. You can never be sure what it's going to come up with because the AI is out there, looking at all the data it has about the real world and providing you with that guidance. And again, I would say, you want to review this and apply your own intelligence and decide for yourself. And, like you added sports enthusiasts, you might want to add a different channel. You might want to edit one of these channels. You might want to remove one. So you can do all of that and tweak it to your heart's content.
Yeah.
And then, when you're ready, you just keep going and you say, right, the customer relationships. So the channels are about how are you going to reach out and attract those customers into your business and your proposition. Customer relationships then is, once you've got them, what kind of a relationship are you going to have them to ensure they maintain a positive relationship with your business, whether that's for resales or ongoing servicing, or so that they'll introduce their friends, whatever it is that you think is required there. It's going to help you understand the kind of things that you need to think.
And another real-time moment there, folks. That was the customer relationships box or area, all populated by AI. And clearly you can do this, as Chris has suggested, recommended you go and check this, but also apply your own knowledge and understanding and expertise to that. But all of that was done
it's
automatically.
Come up with some interesting ideas. For example, I'm not sure if you'd said to me, Chris, what I need to do for my bike shop, I'm not sure I would have thought about educational content.
No.
I'm just not sure that I would have, or maybe I would have, but it would have taken me a while to get there. And it's just got there so much more quickly. So I would think about that. Again, if I click on it, it'll give me some guidance about what does it mean by educational content. So
share valuable information through newsletters, social media, and install workshops to educate customers on bike maintenance, safety, and local cycling routes. Yeah, get it. Yeah.
So, you can totally see why that would work for a bike shop. It's thought of it where I might not have. I might still decide, look, I think that's not part of what I want to offer. So I could still delete that if I wanted to, but it's certainly an interesting suggestion.
And to contextualize this, Chris, you put your cursor in the relevant box. Is that correct? And just hit. And how did you do that? You went into customer relationships and then just hit.
No, actually, the AI guidance here is suggesting the next thing that you should do and saying we can help you do it.
Right. So now it's saying.
So now it's saying the next thing to do. It's going to suggest, I think, key activities. No, it's suggesting when you're happy with the value proposition, you go on to the key activities. Here it is. Sorry. So it's highlighting that, suggesting that's next. And if I ask StratBot, it'll then fill in the key activities.
Bingo. So should we do that? Should we have?
Yeah. So the key activities will then be what are the capabilities, processes, if you like? What are the things that you will have to be able to do in Bob's Bike Shop that you then need to understand how you're going to deliver all of these things, right? So I'll need to think about, it's suggesting quality maintenance and repairs. How am I going to do that? Can I do it myself? Do I need to hire a repair technician? And if I click, I'm just picking that one at random, right? But if I click on that at random, you'll see it's giving me space to think about all of these things. So, saying who's going to do it, certain people, who's going to do it? Is it me? Am I hiring a team? How big is that team? What's the process for doing it? What technology, what tools and equipment will I need in order to be able to do this? So it's helping me map out the answers to all of those questions.
So shall we finish off that business model canvas? I know you would recommend it, but should we do it as prompted by the AI tips, just so we can see the thing doing it? Because obviously we could do this without any AI interaction at all. We can do this entirely manually. But I think for many people watching, it'd be fascinating to watch it populate this business model canvas in about 35 seconds each time.
Yes.
For each of it.
So I would always suggest at least some manual input. I would never suggest you rely exclusively on the AI, but just in the interests of time, because the manual effort the AI is faster than the manual effort. So just in the interests of time, I'm going to, you see, we've got down to cost structure. And if I do the last one, we will now have a complete business model canvas mapped out,
which you can then print out. You can print out.
I can then print out. Yeah, I can download it as an image, which I can then copy and paste into something else. I can print it out, and you'll see what it does. When you say print, what it does is it removes all of the active, so it'll remove the input boxes, because you don't want that necessarily on your printout, and give you a nice. Going back to your point about it being a team sport, at this point the system is actually suggesting you probably want to share this with some people, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you've got a co-founder that you want to set this up with. Maybe you've got a trusted friend or advisor, or maybe you just want to share this with your significant other and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. So, are you with me on this or not? So it's actually suggesting that you share it with someone. And if you click on that link to share now, it'll actually take you through the process where you just put in their email address, and it will then send an email to them saying, hey, would you like to have a look at this? And they can actually then it'll sign them up into the system, and they can actually go and edit or comment on what you've done. And so it becomes a participative process with someone that you trust and someone whose input you would value.